Hello everyone and welcome to Anime Chess, where we take a look at Fire Emblem gameplay and analyze it as if it's a chess game so that we can learn from it and maybe even have a little fun along the way. Sometimes I make analytical videos about some concepts in Fire Emblem, like using your Jagan characters or not ditching your dancer. But for Anime Chess, we're going to be a bit more practical. It's all about the question, you're in this usually bad spot, how do you get out of it? In Anime Chess, I like to analyze other people's gameplay than my own, so if you would like to submit your own gameplay, I plan to take viewer submissions from Discord and my Patreon page. If you'd like to know these details on how to submit, or on Anime Chess in general, check out episode 1 by clicking in the top right corner, or the video description. But now, let's introduce our protagonist for today, Professor Bopper. Bopper is a fellow YouTuber who's made a lot of notorious video essays on Fire Emblem and other games, but today's segment is from one of his many streamed Iron Man playthroughs. We're going to take a look at his attempts at Fire Emblem 7 Hector Hard Mode, specifically the infamous Cog of Destiny. Very difficult map that can go very wrong if you're not prepared for it. So let's see how Bopper has prepared for it. You can see his team on the screen right here. He's got, let me see if I get the Paladin right this time. We got Eliwood Hector, Marcus, Farna, Sarah, Pent and Urk, I don't know which is which, Harkon, Ninian, and of course the most interesting unit on the screen here, Nino. He's got a lot of deaths. Some units here could have been very important on Cog of Destiny. Florina, if she was trained, I don't think she was, but she could have been very good. Jafar can double Valkyries at base, so he's very useful. Raven usually cannot, unless he's been like trained up really high and he doesn't weigh himself down, but he can potentially be useful. Kanas, potentially very good, because of weapon triangle against them and being able to use Luna. That's all pretty useful. Other than that, not a very big deal. Isidora's too slow to double Valkyries. She's not particularly great against everything else, but she could have been useful. But the team he has is mostly fine. You could expect me to criticize him for using Nino. Bopper himself said when I talked to him about this, he's like, yeah, using Nino was a mistake, I shouldn't have done it, but his co-host Vivian really liked Nino, so I'm assuming that's why he was doing it. This is not a series about criticizing someone's use of a character. I never do that anyway. Like, if someone wants to use Nino, go right ahead. But I do think it's interesting to see how someone goes about using Nino in Cog of Destiny, because Cog of Destiny is filled with magic users with high resistance. Probably the worst environment for Nino to feed kills to. The previous chapter, Night of Farewells, is pretty good for it because most of the enemies have low resistance, so it's easy to chip someone for Nino. But this team is mostly filled with units that will just one-round KO the enemies and not leave anything for Nino. Nino has trouble having enough damage to finish an enemy off when it's been weakened a lot of the time. She does 0 damage against a lot of the enemies here. But it's still interesting to see how you can use her. It's still a fun exercise, I think, so we'll go through that. As we're playing, I have watched the footage beforehand to make this not too long. We're going to speed it up a little bit. We're going to watch it on mute because that will make it easier for me to commentate over, and it makes it easier to keep the length a little bit within reason because it is quite a long chapter. We're not going to watch all of it. He's going to do a little bit of training here. This gives us an opportunity to look at his inventories that went by pretty fast, but the first thing I want to note here is that Bopper doesn't have any pure water on his units. I don't think he had any in his convoy. I can only guess as to why it was. With Bopper, there's a lot of reasons it could be. It could be he just forgot to buy them in New Resolve because he didn't think they were that important. It could be that he accidentally finished New Resolve by accident by killing the boss before buying Pure Waters. It could be that one of his characters bought 5, another one bought 5, and then they all died. We'll never know. The point is he's playing this without Pure Waters. If you have yet to play Cog of Destiny on Hector Hard Mode, I do recommend getting Pure Waters in that shop. It's the only one where you can get them before this chapter as far as I remember. So if you don't have them, that'll make the chapter a lot harder. You can make up for it through other means like Barrier and Ninja's Grace, or just having high resistance to begin with, but Pure Water will really help. Your staff users' turns are very precious, and if you need to like restore a bunch of people or heal a bunch of people, it's kind of also difficult to also get in a couple barriers. For example, Bopper, his only high staff ranks are on Sarah and Pence, and then I think Urk is like D in a lot. So you can imagine that your staff users' turns are quite precious, even with Ninian on board still. So that's one thing that's going to make it a little bit harder. Barrier does not just replace Pure Water. Okay, so Bopper has started making moves, and here he puts Sarah very cleverly at the choke point on the bridge here. This is good because it's actually right outside the reinforcement zones. This is something I should probably address at the start of the chapter. The black lines indicate 4 different reinforcement zones. You got zone 1 at the bottom where the shamans are. That one triggers Shaman and Druid reinforcements from the forts on the left. Then you have Zone 2, which is where the monks are, like kind of in the center. And that one triggers monks and bishops from the, I guess, central northern forts, basically where the other bishop is. And then you have finally Zone 3, which is the zone below the mages on the right. And that one triggers Valkyries from, I believe, the upper forts. I never triggered that one because fighting more Valkyries than you already need to is complete and utter. It's not good. Don't do it. It's very scary. Don't do it. And then you have Zone 4, which is the upper left one, the biggest one. That one you cannot avoid triggering. That one causes all the remaining enemies to start moving towards you. It also spawns Vida and a bunch of Wyverns reinforcements in the bottom right. That's the only one you have to trigger. Oftentimes people will trigger Zone 2 by accident, but Zone 1 and 3 I definitely recommend avoiding. Like, never step into those zones. Like, you don't have to get into the zone to kill the enemies that are near or in those zones. So Shamans, for example, are going to be killed by Sarah on enemy face, which is very nice. So avoid Zone 1 and 3 and wait with Zone 4 until you're kind of done with the map. You're kind of done with everything else. And Zone 2, the bishops and the monks are not very hard to kill, so you can trigger it if you want to. You can also avoid it if you want to. It's fine either way. Okay, so we're going to move Nino upwards towards the monks, and we have Farna here with about 19 total javelin uses. Good thing Bopper did is note to pack a lot of 1-2 range weapons. There's going to be a part where I think it's actually going to be... It would have been better if he didn't have only 1-2 range, but we'll get into that. He's also, like, I think a little low on weapons. This is a stretch of the game where you haven't had an armory visit in a while. There's a lot of chapters without any kind of vendors or armories, so it's possible to run low on weapons if you haven't really stocked up enough. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a bit of an issue for him later on. Yeah, and he's checking out Luna. Luna, honestly, the biggest threat of this chapter, besides the Valkyries, not necessarily the Shamans, but more on the Druids that have them. Because they, first of all, they hit like for half your HP, if not more, depending on how much HP you have. And then they have really high crit hits, so they're almost always going to hit, and then it also has really high crit. Something interesting he did here that I want to notice is that he rescue dropped someone. What he actually could have done is use Nina's Grace on the character and then rescued them and held on to them for a turn. Then next turn you could drop them, they'd still have Nina's Grace. It's a little trick you can do. Usually it only comes in handy for arena abuse. Like, what you would do is you would Nina's Grace a character. They would get the boost for +10 defense and res. You rescue them to preserve it, because that status gets preserved. Your status doesn't decline as you're rescuing someone, which is also why you shouldn't rescue someone who is like silenced or put to sleep or berserked. Well, you can't rescue berserk characters, but you get the point, right? But in this case, you can also use it to preserve an Nina's Grace boost for next turn. And you can have 2 characters be Nina's Grace, for example. The reason I say this is a big deal is because this map has a lot of status stabs. And if a character's been affected by Nina's Grace or any other status like poison, they won't be targeted by sleep or berserk or silence or anything like that. So that's a nice way you can cheese that a little bit. If there's someone you don't want to get statused at all, like say your carry, like in this case it would probably be Harkin, you can Nina's Grace them and you will know they won't get status for a turn. Pretty useful knowledge to have that I think Bopper knows. Bopper knows a lot of obscure things about Fire Emblem. Just because I think he just talks a lot about Fire Emblem. So he knows a lot of little trivia-like things that can help you in a playthrough like that. Alright, so here we have Nino's first bit of action. As you can see, she has the same damage output on the monk as the monk has on her, and here one of them is even beating her. This is why feeding kills Nino is so difficult. It's not undoable, but it's going to take some conscious use of your characters. And this is the first blunder. He just put Nino in range of a purge, and I don't remember him checking that purge range. Maybe he didn't realize that this bishop has purge. There are bishops on this map that don't have it. The reinforcements don't. But this bishop with purge and the bolting sage, they are the biggest threat in this map. They are the best anti-turtling mechanic other than the brigand that goes for the warp staff village. So you have to be very conscious of their ranges in the early portion of the game. They can easily snipe off any character that's been weakened a little bit. If Nino had been at full HP, she would have lived. So if Bopper knew that purge was there, he should have just not put Nino in range of the monks, and she would have been completely fine. As is, look, a miss. Good. She lives yet another day. It would have been very, cringe if I made this video about Nino and then it's like, oh, Nino died turn 1. Here we go. Okay, but now he knows the bolting is there. You could also have used like barrier plus Nina's Grace to keep Nino safe, I suppose. And yeah, now he has to deal with a Valkyrie, a pair of Valkyries actually that are coming in. The bottom one has just a weapon and a physic, just a thunder and a physic, and the top one also has a sleep staff. And nice thing you might want to know about sleep staffs in this map is it's really annoying when they do sleep you, but at least they will always prioritize using sleep over even killing your characters, as far as I know. At least that's how the silent stage in Night of Farewell works. Don't come to me if they actually do end up killing your characters, but I'm pretty sure, and this is like easy to test, that they will always try for a status staff before they try to attack you. At the very least, if they don't see a kill, they're never gonna attack you, I'm pretty sure. They're just gonna try to sleep you. So yeah, he fed the first kill to Nino because Urk is good and can't kill anyone. Bopper, throughout this playthrough, has said that he has a case of the Urk fever. He seems to be really enjoying using Urk, so he's doing that. In this case, it's actually very helpful that Urk cannot kill anything. And here, Farna's gonna take on the Purge Bishop, because in order to attack Nino, the Bishop had to move very forward. I know it was an accident, but it's actually a very helpful demonstration of why it can be nice to bait these long-range tome users forward so you can kill them more easily. Danon used this to the same effect in his playthrough. He baited, I think, the Bolting Sage into attacking Merlinus, and that allowed him to kill him like very quickly afterwards. I think it was either the Bishop or the Sage. Either way, Bopper did something that Danon did too, so that must mean it's a good idea. But yeah, now he's moving into Zone 2. It's like you can see, it's pretty hard to avoid that zone if you're not consciously looking to avoid it. It's a pretty big area that you have to move through. An 8-move Paladin, I think, or like maybe a 10-move unit can move through it without getting blocked or getting into the zone. So it is possible to avoid. You can also like walk across the river, take it very slowly, but it makes it harder to take care of the Bolting Sage and the Purge Bishop. So I would just activate Zone 2 if you're in doubt. Like, just deal with the fact that you're going to see a couple monks and a bishop every other turn, basically. It's like 2 turns in a row, twice or something like that. It's really not that bad, because monks are dumb. And here we see the Eclipse Druid making himself known. This guy also has Luna, I believe, so that makes him a bit of a dilemma. You want to kind of rush him before he runs out of Eclipse and starts equipping Luna, but at the same time doing that puts you in range of a lot of more enemies, so it like spreads your units a little bit more thin. So whether to do that or not is a good question. If you have a plan for it, you should do it, but it's not something you can carelessly do. But yeah, this Valkyrie, fortunately, is on their own, basically. They can just easily be nuked by Harken or someone else, like ganging up on them. And then, hold on, let me see if we can get a good screenshot here. This is the situation right now. Time to get out my epic pen. So this is when the chapter starts getting interesting. Cog of Destiny is at first glance a very open map, but it does have a lot of choke points that are very easily choked if you know where to look for them. In this case, you'll want someone around here. You have to be very careful where, because there is, of course, a reinforcement zone there. So that's why I put the line at the bridge. You don't want to be on the bridge, you want to be right below it. That would choke all these mages. Unfortunately, none of Bopper's units are in range to choke that point right now, so he's going to have to put someone out there that's just going to have to fight them in the open. Not the end of the world, but since Hector's down here, that could get a little bit dicey. You have to be conscious of their ranges against Hector's, especially because Hector is not barriered or pure watered. So keep that in mind. So that's that choke point. There's a couple more. The second choke point is where Farna is basically. You can put a unit almost anywhere as long as they cover this one. You can also do this choke point like one square up and you'd still choke the point, but the easiest is to put them like Farna and someone else here, and that will block off them. Bonus points if you don't want to engage with these enemies at all. You can leave the Troubadour alive. They probably won't move away from you, and you only get attacked by like 2 monks for a while, and that's about it in that spot. So pretty safe to just choke on here. Of course, there is the Bolting Sage alive still above there, so anyone who goes there has to be wary of that. Then there's a choke point here. A little hard to see with no grid on, but this is 1 square and it covers this whole point. You can also do it, alternatively, you can do it on a different spot. You can have, for example, 2 people choke it like this if you want to, but then it takes 2 characters, so that seems a bit worse to me. But that is one other way you can do it. And then finally, of course, you don't want them to slip through here, so you should also put a character either here or on the other square besides it. Like one of these 2 squares covers the choke point from below. Chances are if you don't put someone here, but none of the enemies from behind can reach around to reach you, they could all pile up behind, like around where the shaman is basically. They could all pile up here. You don't have to choke this at all, but if you want to choke all the points and be safe, you'll have to choke it here. The reason I'm suggesting choking, by the way, is for the same reason I said it in Phantom Ship. If you don't choke a point, you let the enemies kind of walk into your formation, it's so much harder to keep your units safe, especially because Bopper presumably wants to keep Nino, Ninian, and Bernadette safe, and some other characters also can't take infinite enemies. Like the monks and shamans, like if you just bury up your Marcus or your Eliwood or your Harkin, they'll probably be safe. But the Valkyries, and especially the Druids, are a lot more dangerous, and you don't want to give them free access to anyone who they want to attack. So that's why I think choking points is so important in Cog of Destiny. Of course, as I said before, you do have to be aware of the long-range threats. In this case, that's not just the Polting Sage, but also the status staves, the Sleep and the Berserk and everything. So let's see how Bopper handles that. Okay, so after some deliberation, Bopper decides that the best way to get rid of this Valkyrie is to nuke them with Harkin, which I agree with. Pretty safe play. You can even get a 100 hit with the Iron Sword here, apparently, so that is very nice. Harkin can't reach a whole lot else, like besides that monk. Whenever you're in doubt about which character should attack which enemy, one helpful thing I like to do is look at, okay, which character only has like 1 or 2 attacks they can do, legal moves, as my regular co-host Raisins like to say. Harkin was pretty far in the back. The only enemies you could reach were this monk and that Valkyrie. So just have him take care of that, and it'll be done. And this monk is easy fodder for the good old Nino Urk combo, so pretty easy decision there as well. And then you just have to find 2 characters that can choke the point where Farna is. Now, Farna's already there. She could probably do it just fine. You might want Farna to take care of the Bolting Sage if she can this turn. There are a couple ways to do that. It might be too early to do that because Ninian can't help Farna a whole lot. I don't think she's in range to use anything on her, like the dancer rings, and the dancing wouldn't add a whole lot of movement, so I'm not sure if it's this turn where he can actually do that. And he's considering choking this point with Eliwood Marcus. I think Eliwood and Marcus have a support together. I think Marcus is also supported with Merlinless, funnily enough. Bopper has a lot of supports activated, which really helps in this chapter. It supports on someone like Marcus. Marcus is Ice Affinity, I think Merlinless is Dark, so that's like half defense and a lot of avoid right there. And he has Pentheus Berry on Eliwood, another good choice. Eliwood has okay res. It is scary to use Eliwood because, you know, he's a lord, he's a game over condition, as I've experienced myself. The good thing with Bopper though is that, I might as well get into this now, Bopper doesn't play on the most strict Iron Man rules possible because that's more fun for him as a streamer. He doesn't like resetting the whole run just because his lord died, or, you know, abandoning a whole run just because the lord died. So he has like a different system. He has like a casual coin system. That's what the casual coins thing in the bottom right is. I think every time he games over, he gets a game over, he gets a casual coin, and this punishment for having to do that is basically his co-host Vivian gets to play instead, which I assume is the equivalent of like a massacre on his units. I have no idea, but that is his punishment for invoking a casual coin. Just gonna avoid it the best he can, but he's not gonna abandon the whole run, which is similar to what Speedy Hawk did and what I sometimes do with my Iron Man. It's like, okay, the run is over, but I'm just gonna play it normally from now because I'm too attached to my characters to actually like completely let go of the whole run. I want to finish the playthrough basically. You need Disgrace Nino, Eliwood in addition to Barrier. A little bit overkill, but you really can't be too safe with your lords. The drawback, of course, by giving Eliwood 2 boosts is that Marcus gets none, so he's just kind of sitting there, waiting for this Valkyrie to come in. Farna looks like she's going to choke this point with a Javelin, which is good. But like I said, Farna's Javelin uses are a little bit limited, because I don't think he has too many in the combo. I actually don't know how many he has. He has a couple, but he's using pretty much all of them to kill these monks that really aren't that big of a threat, so I'm not going to say it's a mistake to do that, but I'm going to question if it could bite him later, the fact that he's going to run through his javelins on these monks. And yeah, here, Sarah doesn't double these mages, but she does at least bite them and can hold them off. She can no longer keep them completely contained. Like you can see here, they're coming through the choke point, but he can still keep Hector safe because Hector is down here somewhere. And like where Dart is basically, as long as Hector's out of range, these mages will just keep attacking Sarah and Suicide and do 0 damage to Sarah. So as long as you're somewhat consciously checking range, it should be okay on that front. Here's a Luna Druid. Normally these guys would have some crit on Eliwood, but I think because he's in support range they don't. So that's one good way you can negate their crit. For Druids that might be a little bit tougher because they have some more skill. So you should be aware of enemy crit rates. It's very scary when you just see an enemy run up to you and it's like, oh, they have 3% crit on me. My run could just like be over. But Eliwood has decent luck and a support, so that should help out. His Eliwood is actually really good, which I know is a rarity, but it happens. Eclipse on Nino. I'm not sure how Eclipse targeting works exactly, because they like putting enemies on low HP, but they also like just doing a lot of damage, so that's obviously in conflict when it's with Eclipse, which always halves your HP. A sleep attempt on Pent. Probably good to note is that status stabs are 1 RN. So the chance you see them hitting is the chance you get, which means it's a little more dangerous for units with high res and a little less dangerous, I guess, for units with low res. But generally, you just assume they hit low res units. But in this case, they went from so far away that is fine. Here, Bopper is considering how to take out this druid in the bottom right, and also the bolting stage in the upper right. Or bottom left and upper right, excuse me. There are multiple ways to do this. This is a turn where he has a lot of options available to him, and it's not quite clear which ones he should use for what purpose, because obviously it's really just about how you use Ninian, I think, at the base. Because like Ninian is right here. That's really up. I should draw a better circle. Ninian is right here. And she can target a couple of different people. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Ninian can reach Farna. Farna doesn't have the strength to one-round KO the bolting sage with her javelin. She would need to use a stronger weapon, or Phyllis might. Or something more complicated, but pretty much this is what it comes down to. I think maybe if you get the chest from... I think there's a bolting you can get before this. You can like bolting him, and then maybe you can kill him with Farna, something like that. Farna's pretty safe to go up there alone. She doesn't need to be Nina's graced, or I think she's already barriered. So that's not too much of a worry. She doesn't have to go in range of the sniper or the heroes that are over here. This hero right here is another one right above. Those are not a concern to Farna right away. She can escape, she can fly away. So she'd be pretty safe doing that. But you also might want to protect Eliwood and Marcus, because they want to go for this druid over here behind the plane tile window. He right now has Eclipse equipped. You want to kill him before you eclipse Luna. But of course, there are Valkyries out here. I think there's at least one over here. I forgot if there's others over there. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. You don't want them to die, because Eliwood and Marcus, I think neither of them can one-round this druid. Lightbrand's even weaker because it hits an enemy resistance, and at range it also halves your strength. I believe that's how the formula goes. But it does give Eliwood extra safety on enemy phase, because it gives him weapon triangle on enemy phase. And you also just want to rush this area a little bit, because you want to stop the Brigand from destroying the Warp Village, because right now he has Pent and Sarah, both can use Warp, so it would be kind of nice to be able to use it. This Shaman is fodder for Nino, assuming you're okay with Urk taking a risk by getting Lunad. He has a chance to get O-code, so the safer way would be to just kill him with Harken. So it depends on how much risk you want to take. If this was a game with Divine Pulse, you do this 100% of the time. If you get crit, just use one Divine Pulse and get back, but it's an Iron Man, so you can't. There's only one Shaman here with Luna, so Eliwood is probably safe using a Javelin as long as he has the Marcus support. So he's deciding to go with the Steel Sword, and I think the plan here was to, because I watched it with sound on, I think the plan here was to have Eliwood weaken him, and then you trade with Marcus to get the Lightbrand on, and then you're completely safe. But you got a crit with the Steel Sword. Never punished, I guess, for having a good plan. I don't know where this was going to go. But now you can just trade the Lightbrand to the top, and it's fine. Not sure why hand axe over Javelin. I think Marcus is better with the Javelin, but minor thing. He's looking at Hector. You can see Hector gets 3-shot by these mages, so you probably just want to keep him out of range altogether, not to have any complications. He can like miss. It gets kind of awkward. So just use Sarah here. Kills the one that's on low HP. Very minor optimization here. That's like not even a criticism of Bopper, but very minor criticism, I guess, is... let me get my pen out again. The mage he killed was on low HP. They had 10 HP left. I think this one had full HP. I don't remember. I think it's because Sarah was like down lower. In a spot like this where the enemies are of no threat to you whatsoever, they're doing 0 damage, you can, if you want to, attack an enemy at full HP, and on enemy phase you will KO both. Whereas now, this mage right here is going to be at half HP starting next player phase. I know it sounds like a minor detail, but sometimes this matters. In this case, I don't think it will, but sometimes you want to really maximize your enemy phase like this to prevent enemies from bleeding through like a more fragile character. Like in this case, what if Hector was closer or something? The one reason not to do this, which is also worth pointing out, is that the mage could have healing AI, and if you knock them below that healing threshold where they start healing, they might run towards an enemy with like a healing staff, like these Physic Valkyries, or towards a fort to start healing, which can be a bit obnoxious to deal with. It's not game ending, obviously, but it can be a little bit annoying. You don't always want to deal with that. So that's a reason why you would still do what Bopper did here, which is just kill this mage, get it over with, which is also pretty safe. Again, very minor in this case, but worth pointing out in general, so you can look out for it in your own playthroughs. By the way, I forgot to mention this in the intro, but I am obviously not a perfect Fire Emblem player. I miss stuff too. Feel free to add good ideas in the comments, like other alternative plays that I missed. I'm obviously not, you know, a 2000 elo Fire Emblem player. Let's see, I think he's still looking at this Farna play right here, because she sees about, I think, 3 points short of one-on-one with the Javelin, and 1 square short of being able to attack with anything else. Of course, she only has the Iron Sword, so there's no great way of getting a stronger weapon on there. Merlinus cannot trade in this game, so he's considering using Nina's Grace to keep her safe. Of course, like I said, she's not going to be in range of any enemies that can really threaten her. I think all the enemies there do like 0 damage to her. Maybe the Bishop can damage her. Harkon's looking out to kill this Valkyrie. He's still thinking about how to kill that Shaman. I think Harkon should probably just choke the point, kill the Shaman, and prevent the Valkyrie from bleeding through. Valkyrie will probably end up going for Marcus anyway, because Marcus takes a relatively high amount of damage. He gets doubled. But you don't want the Valkyrie to have the option to attack Nino, for example, so you still want to choke the point. Okay, so Bopper has made up his mind. He's going to fill his might Farna and send her up there to deal with the Sage. He was afraid of reinforcements coming from forts. I think he was afraid of like sniper reinforcements. I don't think any version has sniper reinforcements coming from here. In this one, they're generals in normal mode. But either way, the great thing here that I think is useful to know in general, actually, is you don't have to be super afraid of anything here. First of all, you should know there's no ambush reinforcements in this game. Besides like 13X and Limb mode, I don't think there's a couple, like chapter 14 is like pirates that will never hit you on enemy face. Basically, don't worry about ambush reinforcements. They're not in Cog of Destiny. Second of all, look at how Farna's positioned. She is on a bunch of mountains over here. So no matter where the enemies can stand, like if they like go here, like even if she gets surrounded, like runs out of weapons or whatever, even if the enemies go like all around here, they can't go on the mountains. So no matter what, Farna's going to have an escape route. So she's not going to get surrounded. You don't have to worry about that. This is generally a good idea with flyers if you can, is position them on terrain that they can fly away through, so they always have an escape route. Chapters where this is pretty handy in, for example, include like 2-3, Joffrey's Charge in Radiant Dawn. You can put Marcia in a couple spots there where she like distracts a bunch of enemies, but at the same time she also always has like a fence or something to fly away over. In this case, Farna's making use of it. I don't know if Bopper realized that or not, but that's a good thing to realize. And now the point is, how do you choke this point? You got 2 Sages, and you got Harkon, and you have the same points to choke as earlier. Like you got over here, and you got over here. So the question is, where do you put who, and where do you put Nino, especially? Because you probably don't get a kill with Nino this turn if you choke those points properly. You probably have to kill the Shaman with Harkon, because he can crit Pent and Urk apparently. You can crit them both and want to kill them, because, you know, triple crits, triple damage crits. You don't have to protect Ninian here, because Ninian actually has really good res. If you level her up quite a bit, her res growth and her HP growth are actually decent enough to where she can tank these monks right now, because monks are just that pathetic. Harkon does have to be a little bit careful, because you can't just put him anywhere. If you look here, the reinforcement zone on the actual map, you can see it starts around this mountain. So it starts around here. Like, anyone below this line is not in the reinforcement zone. Zone 4 is what I'm talking about. So anyone around here, if you're besides this line, you're fine. But if you're inside the zone, you're gonna make every enemy rush you, which is very bad. So Harkon can't just go anywhere. This turn, I don't think he's in any danger of stepping there. But in future turns, it might be something to look out for. So let's keep that in mind too. Okay, but yeah, he puts Harkon in the correct spot, which is killing the Shaman, but also putting him in the choke points. And now, just to give you an idea of like how powerful of a choke point can be, this Valkyrie used to have basically vision on this whole area right here, and now it's been reduced to, well, basically where Harkon is. You can't go past him. It's that simple. I mean, you already know how good choke points here, but just to give you an idea of like how the single character placement can just completely obliterate an enemy's range. Like, Nino just gained all that space. You can go anywhere she wants to now. Killing the Troubadour is fine. It'll let you advance Urk a little bit more. And then what it does is... Oh, okay, we're going to set it up for Nino instead. I was going to be like, okay, if you kill the Troubadour with Pent, Urk can get on his spot. Now instead, we're putting Nino in a space where she can potentially be attacked. Not saying she's gonna die, it's just gonna reduce the speed at which you kill monks. But hey, this is the upside of using Nino, is you get an extra point of magic and like everything else on her. So I can see the benefit. But yeah, you better be sure that Nino is like capable of living the enemy phase. I'm sure she can. Like, but I didn't see him check, you know what I mean? I mean, kinda did, I guess. Yeah, he's doing it now. It's a little scary though, because the great thing is, like, if the enemies attack Urk, then they're going to be weakened for Nino to kill next turn. You already know that because we set up a kill for her before. And there goes the Brigands for the Warp Staff Village, by the way. Very nice. But yeah, now Nino kills. Like, the thing with Nino is she doesn't set up kills for herself. She's 3-shotting these monks right now with Hellfire. Whereas if these enemies had attacked Urk instead, they would be set up for Nino. So you're getting chip XP now, but at the cost of probably kill XP later, because once an enemy's been chipped by Nino, you can't set them up as kills for her later on, which is kind of funny to me. You can see Marcus faces 0 crit from Shamans as well because of the crit avoid he gets from support with Eliwood, which is very nice. And Sarah takes care of the mages. She doesn't double them, but she has a crit rate, and they do 0 damage to her, so she's going to take care of them just fine. But because they fan out a little bit into the area, you do have to make sure you put Hector in a spot where he cannot be attacked this turn. These enemies are going for Pent, which is quite curious because they're doing 0 damage. They're probably doing 0 damage to Urk too, if they're going for Pent. But it's kind of funny because now these enemies will not be killed by Nino. Pent is just stealing his XP right here. Okay, and now something curious is going to happen. He put a unit, in this case Marcus, in range of this Druid. Now that's very hard to see. That Druid has massive range. The Druids with the female map sprite, but the male battle sprite, they have enormous range with Sleep. They were on the Shrine of Seals and they reached Marcus all the way here. So now because the Druid moved from this spot to this spot, they're now like not 6 tiles, but maybe 5 tiles deeper into the map, which means that they can now reach more units with Sleep, which is a little bit scary. And by a little bit, I mean, it's very scary. You're probably going to get slept 2 more times because they have such high magic that they'll probably not miss. If they have 92 hit on Marcus, a unit with relatively good res from that distance, they're going to have good hit on most of your units. So we are in a bit of trouble. Now from here, Pence gets attacked by Berserk, that's fine. And dodges the Sleep, that's fine. These are all relatively low hit rates, so he's probably fine here. But now, what can we do here, right? Obviously, the solution with Sarah is to take out the mage closest to Hector. That's all good. The other mages are not going to reach Hector now. And what do we do here? So we have still 2 sages choking the points, 1 bishop. So probably here the most urgent thing is maybe get a kill on Nino, hold the choke point, that's all. If Farna's in danger, pull her out. If she's not in danger, stay there and vibe for a bit. So this shouldn't be too bad yet. But you do have to factor in the fact that your units might get statused. Particularly by the Sleep Druid. Harkon can probably stay roughly where he is. It's a pretty good choke point to hold. There's no reason to advance him further. The heroes, you don't need to bait them yet. They're standing still. Why would you bait them ever? But Bopper is interested in a more aggressive play. He's Ninja Grazing Harkon, and he's going to take out this Valkyrie over here, presumably with the Brave Sword, because there's no other way to do it. He doesn't have any other strong way. Oh, actually, the Hand Axe gets him there. So he could do that. To counter the monk. So you can Brave Sword, which will let him counter the heroes. He goes for the Hand Axe. That means the heroes won't be... I don't think he would one-route with the Brave Sword anyway, but now they'll just get hits for less HP. Now the bigger problem here is not really that Harkon is in range of a couple of heroes, although I think that was the wrong play to do. I get that being aggressive is fun. The problem is that if you look at the reinforcement zone map, the line for the reinforcement zone, it's now below Harkon. Let me see if I can draw it. So Harkon is standing here, and if I'm reading the map correctly, the line for the reinforcement zone for zone 4 is about here. So Harkon just crossed into zone 4. Now zone 4, again, it does 2 things. It activates Vida, which is fine because Sarah just finished with the mages, so Hector can just go ahead and pick up Vida right away and probably be fine. Sarah might have to move to an awkward spot, but that's not the biggest problem. The bigger problem is he aggroed the heroes, and he aggroes every single other enemy on the map, so that includes the Valkyries in the top left corner, and it includes the sniper. That's like right above the hero, as well as like any other enemies that are still lurking about. At least I think it activates them all in Hector Hard mode still, so that's going to cause some problems probably. We'll see just how much. He didn't get a kill for Nino, but he barriered her and he healed her, so she's completely fine now. So here begins the enemy aggression. A hero starts attacking Harkon. It's like 14 damage with the Hand Axe. Not great, not terrible, but baiting them is the real problem here. The fact that they're now going to be active and we're going to see some reinforcements come in is the big problem. Nino being in enemy range is fine here. I think she actually doubles this mage, so she's going to get a kill in enemy phase here, which is actually better than I was expecting. That's one way to defeat Nino, is like make an enemy, like weaken an enemy for her, and then have them suicide her twin her enemy phase. That's a way you usually don't think about it. Usually when you're thinking about defeating under-leveled units, you set up a kill for them on player phase, and you just shield them for enemy phase. But if you can do this safely, this is a very good idea. And Urk and Pent, I mean Pent not really, but Urk appreciates his staff experience anyway. He doesn't need the kill experience. I think Urk's still making his way towards S Anima, but the staff rank for him is more important if he goes from D to C. Right now he's at like D in a lot. If he gets to C, he can use Barrier and other C rank staffs, and he's close to Physic, I guess as well. Bopper left Hector in range of 1 mage, just to feed him this one last kill and get him to level 20, I think, or closer at least. I don't mind this too much. There was a chance he could miss, which would have been a little bit annoying, because if the mage stays alive for longer, Hector's going to get damaged over and over. But I think he could survive 2 hits, so it's not the end of the world. And I don't know if he knows that Vida's about to spawn. He might have thought, okay, if he misses, I still have his player phase action, but he's going to need his player phase action to talk to Vida. And in GBA Fire Emblem games, you cannot both talk and attack, at least not in unhacked ones. I know in like ROM hacks you often can do that, like in Vision Quest. But in this game, you can't do that. So Hector's going to be occupied next player phase. Harken is completely fine survival-wise right now, anyway. And conveniently, because he's Ninja's Graced, he cannot get status by the Druid. So there's no danger of him getting stuck in this spot, which would have been absolutely disastrous. So I think if you were going to move him there, it's good to give him Ninja's Grace. I'm pretty sure Bopper is aware of the interaction between Ninja's Grace and status stabs. You can't Ninja's Grace someone who's status and vice versa. So this Druid is going to go for Pent. Now that's a problem. This is why I don't like Pent in the bottom of deployment slots, because if he gets targeted by status stabs with actual accuracy, this is really bad. And there comes some Valkyries. This Valkyrie actually berserks Nino with 27 hit, adding an extra stat staff, and there come more Valkyries. This is the big problem. 5 Valkyries with higher stats than most of them, and Vida activates. So now he's sandwiched. He is sandwiched between the Vida's reinforcements, because he's going to recruit Vida, and then the enemies in the middle, the heroes and the bishops, and then the Valkyries that are coming in from the top and the top left. That's the big puzzle. And when you're facing multiple armies like that, what you want to do is a concept that in chess I like to call simplify, even though it's not exactly the same as it is in chess. But you want to kind of make it so that you don't have to fight 3 armies. You want to kind of merge the enemy armies behind the choke point preferably. But in this case, that's really hard because the enemies are coming from different directions. They're like pinstring you. And you got some liabilities on your team right here. So the biggest problem, I think, is right in the center right here. We have 2 status units that you cannot control now. And Nino being Berserker is not the biggest of deals, because if left to her own devices, she would probably attack Merlinus, I guess. I know both Merlinus and Nino are actually not going to die to Nino, so it doesn't matter too much that she's Berserk. The biggest danger is probably that she would run off into the enemies and then get killed by the actual enemies. So I guess the fact that you can't really protect her, since she moves at the end of your player phase. You also cannot rescue her. Like, you can't pick her up. You can rescue staff her if you want to. So this turn is probably going to have to involve... well, Urk can't use Restore. That's the biggest issue here. So Pent is probably going to be stuck asleep this turn, unless you do something super weird with Sarah, because Sarah is somewhere down here, and Ninian is right here. So there might be a way to get Sarah over here, using like Ninian, the rescue staff, and then if Sarah can get to Pent and restore him, that would be ideal. But I don't really have the information required to figure out if that's possible with the setup. Because like, you can do a lot of weird things when Merlinus is on the field right here. So you get items all over the place. You have Farna as well. You can do weird things like pick someone up, drop them, and then dance them with Ninian. There are a lot of possibilities here. It's really hard for me from this POV to say like, oh, you can do this. But I know Bopper's going to take his time to figure something out, because he knows there's some potential here. Leaving Harken here is dangerous, because now he doesn't have Ninja's Grace. So now he can get slept by the Druid, which he probably can get reached anyway, but in this spot it's particularly scary because he's out in the open and the Valkyries are closing in. Like, when it comes to sleep, you have to think of it not in terms of like, okay, is this fine if this unit gets put to sleep here for next turn, but for the next like 3 or 4 turns. Unless you can get them with Restore, but that's dangerous in its own right because your staff users are kind of far away. You don't want to expose them there. Not with the hero around and a sniper coming around as well. So he's checking the convoy with Ninian. Note how, I think I noted this last episode, note how Ninian's able to do this without losing her turn because she only has 2 items in her inventory. If you want to check what's in your convoy in the middle of a battle, make sure you have a unit that has less than 5 items, because then if you want to take a look around in other sections than besides the swords in this case, you have to deposit an item if you have 5 or more items, because you can only browse around if you go to the take menu, and you can't take items when you have 5 items. So that's why it forces you to give an item to do that. So it's very nice that Ninian only has 2 items in their convoy. This is why it's nice to have characters around with like 4 or less items sometimes. Even though you'd normally think, okay, I just want to load up everyone with 5 items. So Sarah has to get out of range with wyverns. I think Fidah might be able to kill one, so it's not super tough to get her out of range, but you probably want to do something more fancy to get her over there. But it really sucks that Sarah's the only high-rank staff user available right now. This longbow is not much of a threat to Farna because FE7 effective damage is only double, so the 5 might longbows can have 10 base power on Farna. She can survive that just fine. So if you want to kill an enemy with Farna, you can. If you don't need her to help out, like Pent and stuff, of course. Okay, so Bopper has figured out a solution. I think I came to the same conclusion when I first watched the footage. I didn't just now because, you know, I was like, okay, solution's coming up anyway. But this is one of those aggravating situations where you know a solution is within reach, but it can be so hard to crack. You know, can I actually do this, or do I not have enough resources to do this? But in this case, you can see the solution right here. You move Merlinus in a way that Sarah can get stuff from the convoy. Merlinus cannot trade his items to other people in this game, unlike in FE6, but he can move in a place and then let them convoy to him, of course. So Sarah drops the restore staff in the convoy. I probably would have gotten rid of the heal instead, because you might need to restore. But she can maybe take it out next anyway. He rescues Nino, interestingly enough. I was expecting Ninian, so I'm not sure what exactly is going to go down here. Oh, I figured it out. So his Urk is so close to C-rank staffs that if he just mends once, he can reach C-rank staffs right here. So it's even more crazy than I remember. I thought it was gonna... I like the solution that chat posted as well. You guys can't see it, which was like rescue Ninian over with the rescue staff so that she can dance for Sarah, and then Sarah can restore Pent. But it is even funnier. So now Urk can take the restore staff from the convoy, restore Nino, and then we're just letting Pent sleep, I guess. It probably would have been nice to reactivate Pent instead, which I think is an option because you can restore him with Sarah after you dance to her with Ninian. But this is funnier, so I'll allow it. I'll allow it, but you do got to be aware that Pent's... I don't remember how much HP he's at, but he's in range of a Valkyrie. That can cause some problems. I don't remember how much HP he's at though, because I think Pent gets doubled by Valkyries because they're just that fast. Pent has a good speed base, but it's not enough to avoid getting doubled by Valkyries, so if he doesn't get any speed procs, then he might be in trouble. But the good news is that we saved Nino, so hey, there's that. And Marcus is in a bit of trouble. That hero can probably do some major damage to him, and that Druid, like I said, has Luna. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned it yet, but yeah, you can see it here. She has Luna and Eclipse, and like I said before, they'll usually Eclipse to avoid a counter. They can do decent damage with Eclipse almost always, but if they see an opportunity to get a kill with Luna or get you to really low HP, they will. And also, again, if Elowood gets put to sleep here and they rush at him, the Valkyries, that's like recipe for a game over, which is not an Iron Man game over in this case. It would be a casual coin for Bopper, but I'm sure he doesn't want to replay the chapter or watch someone replay the chapter. Alright, so Harkness chilling here. He's gonna get attacked by some heroes. You see if I can speed it up a bit without the quality dropping to 40p again, which happened before. Yeah, Vida has animations off, that's fine. Sometimes she doubles these wyverns, sometimes she doesn't. A lot of them have poison lances, so they don't get weighed down as much, so she doesn't double all of them. Either Vida or Hector fighting these is fine, but if you want to conserve the spear, you prefer to leave Hector as far bottom right as possible, and you fly Vida out of range, which you can do because Vida has one more move than these Wyvern Riders. Some of them might have javelins, but I think the initial ones all have one range only. Don't quote me on that. But she should be able to fly out of range. Maybe fight like one Daphne Wyvern and then she's fine. Because what you don't want is these Wyverns to make it over to where your other units are. You don't want to get sandwiched. Like I said, you want to simplify things. So Hector fighting Wyverns, you can probably fight him all day. Fighter can do it too if you want to, but if you want to conserve the spear, you can just have Hector do it. Harkin about to get berserked and missed, fortunately. So that would have been really bad if Harkin got berserked here. I said he could still get put to sleep, I guess. Also really bad. I'm not sure. The thing is, like, you can probably reach him with a dance or a rescue staff, but you don't want to expend those resources. Yeah, now he gets berserked. That's really bad. Okay, yeah, we're in big trouble now. We're in big trouble. This is officially Trouble Town right here. So the formation has fallen apart a little bit. First of all, you can't leave Harkin here. He's just gonna die. If you leave him here, he's gonna attack a nearby enemy, probably a monk, and then get like attacked by 5 Valkyries or something. So this is your big problem. There's something that needs to be done about here. This choke point still is relevant because these Valkyries can get through here and attack you. So you need 2 units to stand in these tiles to hold them off. Farna's fine. I'm not sure if Pent is fine. I don't know how much HP he's at. I think he got attacked by 1 Valkyrie, so he's probably at half HP now. If he was at full HP before. Nino's still asleep. Nino's probably fine over here. You might want to restore her anyway, but it's not terrible to leave her sleeping because this is not a situation where you can reasonably expect to set up kills for Nino and leave her alive and everything like that. Like, the priority here should not be, okay, I'm going to train Nino, get her as much levels as I can. The priority here should be, oh my god, my units are going to die, I need to stay alive. So there are times where you can feed these weak units, and there are times where it's better to focus on other things. You should wake up Pent with a restore from Urk or something, or with Sarah. You should make sure that whoever goes here is barriered up and ready to fight. A couple of Valkyries. The optimal placement for the units here in this choke point is actually probably not what I just did, but it might be something like this. Unit here. And the reason for that is a Valkyrie can attack from here, a Valkyrie can attack from here. Let me get a different color. So there'll be a Valkyrie here, here, and here. You'll face a total of 3 attacks. I guess the Valkyrie here could attack here, on this spot. But if you don't put anyone there, they can only attack 2 units, and most of these units are only going to face as most 3 attacks. And if you're lucky, it'll be less because they'll be splitting their damage for some reason, but that's not super likely to happen. So that might be a good formation. Of course, there could be reasons to do it the other way. You could like have them side by side like this as well. That might be similar as well. But it should be something like that at the very least. But as always, let me know in the comments if there's any math behind doing it another way. There's probably not going to be any cheesing of any AI manipulations here in this case. But yeah, you want to choke that point. Not much point choking here. You might want to rescue staff Harkin and then restore him. That's probably safer than going over to him. If a unit is isolated and all alone within like 5 enemies, it's easier to pull the unit back towards you. You can either rescue staff him. You can also do like Farna rescue drops him, but it's probably a bit too far for her. Because she can canto, sure, but it's like 6 tiles just to get there, and then like canto 1 tile back. So you might have to like dance with Ninian. Then Ninian's in danger. You have to rescue staff Ninian anyway. It just wouldn't work out very well. You could like rescue and then rescue staff with Farna, but you might as well rescue staff Harkin at that point. Depends on your range too. I think if you wake up Pent, you have the biggest range with the rescue staff, so that might be a solution. See what Bopper does. But yeah, Fida, and like I gotta emphasize this, it's very important in my opinion that Fida flies away from this point over here, because if you start fighting the Wyverns here, then you're just giving them more range on enemy phase. And right now, you can see like Nino was able to sleep in peace over here because there's no Wyverns here. But if this Wyvern, for example, stays alive, or if more Wyverns position themselves here, you have to move Nino, or you have to kill all those Wyverns. So you want to limit their range a lot. Their AI is very easy to manipulate. If they have no one in range other than Hector, they're just going to attack Hector. So put Hector in this forest over here or something, and you don't have to worry about anything. And you can even fly Vida over to the middle group and have her help out over there. Like, sure, it's tempting to kill this one dude over here, I guess. This is a bit weird, because like, you might as well not attack at this point. Like, it's not super important that Hector counters all the guys over here, so I don't think that there's a point in using a hand axe. You might as well just Iron Axe, kill the guy off, and then Hector won't counter the javelins. It's not a big tragedy though. Here's something else I want to notice or note about Fire in this position. So I noted earlier that there was reasons not to use 1-2 range here, and I didn't have this specifically in mind, I gotta admit, but I might as well mention it here. She gets doubled when he uses a javelin against Valkyries, where she's using Iron Sword, she doesn't get doubled. So if you're just holding a choke point, I talked last episode about how you can unequip your weapons, and if you think about it, using 1 range instead of 1-2 range is a similar concept. If you don't care about killing enemies, you just want to stay alive, then using the Iron Sword here makes a lot of sense, because you don't necessarily want to maximize your damage output against a bunch of different Valkyries, you just want to stay alive. So if Farna's holding a choke point here, use the Iron Sword. It will keep her alive for longer, and you get to build some precious sword rank, I guess, as well. So here Bopper has decided what to do with Sarah. You can see her range with the Rescue Staff is not massive. You want to go back as far as possible with Sarah, so that Harken preferably doesn't end up in enemy range here. If you know the priority of where rescue staff units go, then this is an easy decision. Just do this. But generally, if you don't know where your rescue unit is going to end up, like up, left, down, or right from the rescue user, you can either look it up, or you can be like, okay, no matter where he ends up, I want to be able to restore him without putting my units in danger. So now you can restore Harken pretty safely without him being in range. It's pretty cool. And more importantly, without, I don't know what this positioning is all about, because isn't this what you don't want? Is Urk in range of all these enemies? I'm not sure why he didn't move Ninian first. Like, you can have Ninian dance Sarah, because she probably has to wake up Pent, right? I guess you can dance her Urk, and I think that leaves Nino out of range. He has some plans for Ninian, I know that for sure. There's some funny things coming up for Ninian, but I don't think it's this turn. But now he dances for Urk, who I think still has the Restore Staff. So he can wake up Pent, but now Ninian is in the way. So if Urk wants to restore Pent, you either have to move away Ninian, or you have to go above Pent. Both of which come with their own set of consequences. The choke point is not terrible to hold in that position where Pent is, but Pent does kind of want to be healed. You might want Pent to use a healing item on himself if you restore him. He doesn't have to wake up Nino this turn, like I said, it's not a priority. It looks like Ninian kind of needs to get out of there. Actually, since longbow range, so longbow is fine. You can take a longbow hit with Ninian. And then the sniper will also be closer to your unit, so you can kill him. And that way you don't have to deal with the silver bow. So that can be nice. This is... Not sure about this, because now you kind of have to move Pent up, right? To... like, you have to move him 1 up to choke the point on the Valkyries. Unless you're okay with Ninian holding that choke point, which is, again, not terrible because her res is okay. Okay, we're going to heal Harken. But that leaves Pent at very low HP. That is very scary. Kind of wish Pent had a better healing item on him, but I guess 39 HP on Harken is good enough for this enemy phase. But yeah, you got to go there now and like, kill this Valkyrie. Or go on the left and choke the point there. Take care of the hero on enemy phase. Maybe the hero will, like... Sometimes what enemies will do is they like to move towards their favorite targets. Even if they're out of reach in practice. For example, this hero can never really make it to Farna because the enemies are just going to clump up this whole place. But he might still want to go for Farna in this case, and he just moves around here and he just ends up behind a bunch of Valkyries. He's just a non-threat until you're ready for him. Probably not... Doesn't apply to this situation because he can move down towards better targets like Ninian and Sarah. And it takes him 2 turns either way to reach Farna or these two. And they think in terms of how many turns it takes to get to a player unit, so... He'll probably move down if you let him. But Harken kind of needs to cover this spot because Pent on low HP is not going to be good. And he's thinking about it. He's like, good hand axe. I think this is another case where you just use the Iron Sword because it has more accuracy. And again, you don't really care about killing these enemies. You just want to hold the choke point. Myrnus could be used as bait, sure. I'm not sure if Myrnus gets 1-up by Valkyries, but Pent definitely does at this range. Oh, we're gonna... Oh, I think he's gonna hand axe from here. Oh, he's gonna re-equip Urk so he doesn't get weight down. That's understandable, but if you're gonna move him like further up, I guess he's afraid of Harken getting bullied by more Valkyries. Because if Harken isn't buried up enough, he can definitely get 3-shot by Valkyries. Ninian is fine though, so I think his thinking here might be, okay, I don't need to cover Ninian with Harken because her res is so good. She has 19 res. But it's not really Ninian you need to protect here, it's Pent. Pent is actually the more... Ninian is protecting Pent from 1 range attacks. which is funny to me. This Wyvern's got to go. He can kill Nino. So yeah, the attack with Hector was now completely pointless. Like, I'm not sure what the point was of moving Hector and then Vida, because I assumed he was attacking this Wyvern so that he would die on enemy phase or something. I'm not sure what was going on there. But Vida already killed that Wyvern before Hector used the hand axe on him. Okay, so last point about this player phase is Eliwood, and who's holding Marcus, who is asleep. I see an opportunity to unite him with the rest of the group over here and just going up right towards Sarah, towards the Restore Staff. So I'm not sure why he's retreating down instead towards the islands with all the reinforcements. I think he's actually 1 out of range of the bridges. I think WD might be wrong about that. Let me look at that thing. Oh, he's actually 1 out of range of the bridge. Okay, I'm gonna cut that comment out then. I definitely didn't say anything. Okay, so Eliwood is not activated zone 1 yet. He's not activated the Shaman reinforcements yet. He's 1 tile off, and he has the opportunity to just go up and right towards Harkon. And there's some reason where he's not doing it. I'm not sure why, because the Valkyrie's not in range, and the Druid is not in range to do it. I mean, they can Eclipse or whatever. Maybe he gets Longbowed, but who cares? I'm not sure why Eliwood is not going up and right. But instead he's deciding to go down, maybe as a distraction. But this does get him, like, it doesn't really get him cornered, but it just activates the reinforcement zone. You might think that reinforcement zone is further away than he is, but he's leaving Eliwood like so much in the zone that I feel like he knows what he's getting into. I'd have to listen to the audio again to figure out exactly what he's thinking, but the point is it's a mistake, because now he's just going to face more enemies. Yeah, these enemies are going to go for Hector. That's not too interesting. But you can see that he doesn't one-round them. If he did one-round them, this would be perfectly okay, because then they'd be dead. They wouldn't be around. But by moving them closer towards where Nino is sitting, now you have to deal with them in some other way. And this pattern, I think, is going to repeat itself for another turn after this too, to make Nino even more scared for her life. Nino needs a longbow, she's fine. Vida gets attacked by a javelin. I don't mind using 1 to range here with Hector, because it's like his best option. The next best option is like Iron Axe, which is almost the same might, so he's 2 running anyway, so that's fine. So they go for Vida instead. It does use a lot of uses with the spear, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Druid uses Eclipse. Not sure how many Eclipse uses he's down, but obviously if they're going to target down someone, you'd prefer it to be Nino. He's probably not going to hit anyway, but if he's going to hit someone, might as well be the person you're not going to use. And there you go, Valkyrie's going to attack Pent. Hits! Definitely about to get doubled. He did wake up Pent, so he's going to fight back with the Elfire. That might actually hurt him. If he didn't have Elfire equipped, maybe he wouldn't have gotten doubled, but, you know, here we are. Doubled by a 59. And massacred. This is another case. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but this is another case why bringing Louise to this map can be very interesting, because Louise is, first of all, pretty good against the enemies here. She can avoid getting doubled by Valkyries, and she can longbow Luna Druids to set them up for an easy kill without facing a counter crit. But she can also make Pent have +3 res and +3 defense, I guess, to make this situation less likely to happen. But none of that was true, so rip Pent. He is dead. He didn't have the Restore Staff on him, thankfully. But it does mean one less Restore user that you have available for player phase. So Farna is taking the Elfire just fine. I don't care that she doesn't kill this Valkyrie, you just don't want him to get past the choke points and kill your units. That's all you care about. Harkon about to get put to sleep again. Or maybe not, you know, he could dodge. Hopefully he dodged. Yep, he dodges it. Throws out the shield. Says he's fine. Which means another enemy's going to target him. You can tell Harkon is very low in the deployment order compared to the other enemies. There's so many other options in range, and they go for Harkon. Okay, Louise being added to the death counter, because Louise also leaves when Pent is, brought to 1 HP or 0 HP. He doesn't die, he just retreats, and Louise escorts him out. So now you also lose Louise for the rest of this Iron Man, unfortunately. So how bad is the situation now? We cannot quite see what's going on here. I'm going to wait a little bit. Yeah, fight on Hector. Move him down right. Like, don't just stay here. Like, if you're going to attack this Wyvern with Hector, like this Wyvern over here, just do it from here. Anything you can do to keep these Wyverns back from Nino, because I think both of these are in range of Nino. So just move him back a little bit. I guess you can possibly, there's a chance you might restore Nino and move her elsewhere. But I don't think it's this turn that happens. Kind of depends on the order you want to figure things out. This is an easy move to make for sure, but I think there's still ways it could have changed what the best move was. Okay, this is a good way to see what's going on here. So the problem with the choke point here now is that there's an enemy on it. So if you want to choke the point again, you have to kill the sniper and then put someone in it. So that means you lose 2 actions, and that whatever that person here does probably isn't going to be super helpful. The hero is here. This is a good place to mention that generally in GBA Fire Emblems, with some exceptions, but generally speaking, 2 enemies that are both not reinforcements and that are both at high HP, if one of them has 1 range, another one has 2 range, or 2-3 range, or 1-2 range, the 1 range enemy is generally going to move first. And you can take advantage of that here in a couple of ways. For example, if you put a unit, let me get my marker out. If you put a unit in this square and you put a unit in this square, they're kind of going to be relatively safe because the hero moves before the units here. So he's not going to see that he has an available target because these enemies are in the way. So he's going to move somewhere else. He might even end this turn without attacking or moving anywhere. So that way you just disable a hero for free. And that way he can't attack you. The sniper also can't attack. Well, you can use his longbow because he can move somewhere else. If these were 1 range enemies and they would just be stuck here, they're 1-2 range enemies, so it's a little bit different. But if these were like 2 mercenaries or something, and this is a sniper, they'd be stuck here for 1 turn roughly. And then they probably shift about a bit and then attack you next turn. But this is relatively safe. It still takes 2 actions. The alternative would be to kill the sniper and put someone in this spot, and it gets roughly the same thing. But the point I'm making here is you don't have to fear the hero if you know that he's going to move before the 2 range enemies. That's what I want to get across here. Other than that, no matter what, you need 2 units here they only have to be high res units. They don't have to be physically bulky because the sniper can't attack them other than with a longbow and the hero can't reach them. So you can put Nino here, you can put Sarah here, you can put Eric here, you can put Fire Knight here. They're all pretty much fine for this choke point. Here definitely needs to be a very tanky unit. Fortunately, you do still have an easy choke point here. It just has to be someone with insanely good res. Fortunately, there's a monk here. Enemies love to get into each other's ways like this, so fortunately this guy is here, and you only have to take 2 Valkyrie attacks. So again, Fire Knight would be fine here, Ninian would be fine here. All these are honestly okay options to choke the point. And the reason I'm emphasizing choke points here is because obviously you don't have anyone available who's just going to rout these enemies, who's just going to, you know, have the durability in the offense to just cut through here. There's almost no units that can do that in Cog of Destiny against these Valkyries. I think like the ultimate LTC for this uses like a really rigged high magic Priscilla with 1-2 range who gets through everything. Maybe like a speed rigged Harken or Raven with a hand axe might be able to do some of it. But the Valkyries is just so fast, it's not going to happen. So the next best thing you have is to slowly wear them down. Or player phase them, but you don't have that many options to nuke them on player phase. You have a Harken and that's about it. So choke pointing is your next best option here. Alright, so Bopper's made his decision. He brave sworded the sniper from the right with Harken, and now he's like, alright, Ninian can go dance for Harken and maybe kill the Valkyrie, which I think is fine. You could choke point in different ways like I've outlined, but if you don't like that play for some reason, you're scared of something weird happening, or you don't know that's available, this is still a pretty safe solution, assuming Harken has the bulk to survive. But I think with the Silverbow sniper gone, the only physical attack he'll face is Harken is the hero, and then it's like 1 Valkyrie in range, and I think that one still has a status staff, so he's not going to get attacked by that. And Bopper knew that. I remember that from watching his footage. He said, yeah, that Valkyrie is just going to use a sleep or a berserk or something, so I don't have to worry about Harken dying here. Might get status, but he's probably not going to die. In fact, he's probably going to get status because they keep targeting him, especially with Pentdead. They will target him. And here you can see that like both Eric and Sarah are completely fine choking this point, so one of them just has to move up and protect everyone else from being attacked. And then they're going to do jack squat for damage, but that's okay. You just don't want your units to die. You don't care if the enemies die. Elderwood has the option to attack this druid, which is probably pretty safe to do. There's like 1 Valkyrie that can attack you, but again, that Valkyrie has a status staff. You don't have to worry about that. The druids and the shamans that showed up are pretty far away. And this druid is probably not going to get one-on-one by anyone. It'll be a while before Marcus wakes up, especially because he was in Elderwood's saddlebags for, I want to say, 1 or 2 turns. And sleep lasts 4 or 5, so he's not going to wake up for a little bit. So Elderwood might have to do this on his own. I would have preferred if he was united with the rest of the group. But the spot we're in, you know, this is the best course of action. No 8% crit this time on this druid, but weakening him is good. And I like that he used the 1-2 range weapon to do it, because if you use a 1 range weapon, then the druid will be like, okay, I can Eclipse, but if I don't want to take a counter, I can also use Luna for free, like, 27 damage on Eliwood. So this is way better. Now the druid isn't very tempted to attack Eliwood unless he brings himself very low HP. But with Lightbrand, he also reduces damage by 1. So the chances of him wanting to Luna Eliwood are pretty low. And I think he's still in support range of Marcus. And I think we saw earlier that the druid... I think we saw a Shaman didn't have crit on Eliwood. So the druid might not have a whole lot either. Maybe a little bit more. But it might still be 0. But yeah, we're gonna use the max HP. If there's a barrier available somewhere, I would like to see it used somewhere around here, but healing arc to like max HP is fine too, I guess. You can move Merlinus away. That's fine. And I'm not sure what we're doing here. Oh, we're just getting fighted some more weapons. I like this. There's not a whole lot of it in the convoy. It's always weird in Cog of Destiny where it's like, okay, Fido needs some weapons, but I forgot to bring them for her, so I guess I'll just have her get them from Merlinus. She just has nothing on him. Okay, so the hero died. Not much to be done about losing the Brave Sword use here. It's fine. Hector's going to face some more attacks, but like I said before, Hector's not one-on these. He's also not countering the Javelin ones, so they're getting closer to Nino. And Nino's not waking up next turn, I think. He's letting her sleep, letting her take her afternoon nap. So this might be the turn where he has to move her away, either by restoring her and moving her away, or by rescue dropping her. But either way, he's got to expend some turns that he could be doing other things to take care of Nino. I'm not quite sure if she's in range, but I know it's an issue at some point in the video, so I might as well mention it now. Yeah, this is honestly pretty ideal. Actually, this is not ideal, because now this Monk is gone. There's a higher chance of Valkyrie coming through. So if you want to choke this point, like just choke the point, you'd rather use an Iron Sword here. If you want to hurry things up and make the stream more entertaining, if you want to get through these enemies faster and you don't think you're in any danger, then using the Javelin here is of course fine. I'm just trying to think of like the safest possible ways to play this. But, you know, considering the units that are left over here have pretty good res, they can probably hold out fine on these Valkyries. Alright, so there's one problem left in this enemy phase, and it's the fact that Harkin is at 27 HP. And there's a druid here who does exactly 27 damage with Luna, unfortunately. So this is exactly what I meant earlier. I forgot it was happening this turn, but yeah, this druid will switch to Luna if he can kill someone. So suddenly, Bopper is without a Harkin. Not the unit that was tanking the most choke points, not the unit that had the most res, but definitely his offensive juggernaut. One of the few units he had who could one round some of these like weaker magical enemies is now gone. And so is his Brave Sword. And like I think like 3 hand axes. And that's a problem. A big problem with Iron Mans that you might not know of is that once you lose enough units, the maps become really hard before you get like deploy other units. Like it's not just that you have to replace that units with other units that it might be worse, but in the map itself, Bopper has like, I don't know, what, 5, 6, 7 units left. That can be a big problem. But yeah, of course the big problem is you lose Harkin and everything he had on him and everything he brought to the table. And now you have to kill these enemies with like Farna, this crit happy Sarah who did 12 damage with a divine crit to a Valkyrie. That's a major issue. The choke one was blown wide open, but these enemies aren't taking advantage. Instead, they're trying to sleep Farna because their favorite target Harkin is now gone. Of course, it's gonna miss because it's only 9% to hit. And these are just choked behind here, and another group of reinforcements come in very helpfully. This is something you can do deliberately. I don't think it was deliberate here, but this Valkyrie over here was on a fort that was supposed to spawn an enemy. Sometimes you can have enemies block reinforcement fort for you, depending on the situation. That can be very helpful, but it's hard to take advantage of deliberately without really trying very hard to do it. Usually just run into it by accident at least once in the playthrough. But yeah, now what? Now what do we do? Because we're dead. Well, I mean, we're not dead, but we're in trouble. But fortunately, he did weaken that druid at least at first, so can probably kill her now if you're willing to risk Eliwood's life here. That other druid has Nosferatu, I believe, so if Eliwood has a reasonable amount of res left, I think it was barriered earlier. He probably won't die, but there's a Luna Shaman in there, and he would like to stay there, like stay in Marcus's range as well. And yeah, this is exactly what I was pointing out earlier. Look at that Wyvern range. Like, all these enemies are chilling around Hector because he's too far to the left. If he'd been here instead, the Wyvern's range wouldn't be this big. So now Fight has to like rescue drop Nino out or something. Or Sarah has to move back. And when you lose units like this, like when you lose Penta, when you lose Harken, you want to have someone like Sarah available to choke the point here. So, how are we going to do this? Well, again, gotta choke the points. I don't need to point them out to you again. Alright, so Bopper figured out a different solution. We could just kill the Wyvern that's in range of Nino. There's only one, fortunately. It's this Javelin guy, so we could just double him with the Silver Axe and kill him off. And that's still fine. And he did a weird thing with Sarah and Uruk where he put them vertically next to each other, so now we need an additional unit to choke this point. Not sure exactly what the point of that was. But it works out. Now Farn has a new Javelin, so she can keep going ham with it. I think it's fine to just use an Iron Sword here, because you're not doing a whole lot of counter damage anyway with Sarah and Uruk. So your enemy phase productivity is going to be low anyway. So why bother with a Javelin? Especially because the way it looks right now, there's only like 2 Valkyries can like enemy phase Farna, or like have Farna use that Javelin and it's 2 range. The other ones, if they attack her, they'll go for 1 range, so you might as well use the Iron Sword. And I'm saying this not just because I don't want Farna to get doubled, although that's an additional benefit, but it's also like he's low on Javelins. This is his last Javelin, I think. So if you want to save Javelin uses, you don't have to worry too much. Also, of course, I can't forget to bring up that Ninian is holding this choke point with her massive like 19 res, which is super amusing to me. But I thought it was a pretty clever play. The hero and the sniper are removed from here now, so Nino doesn't have to fear any physical enemies. The one thing I'm concerned about is that there's still that Luna Shaman. There's Luna Druid standing right here. That one alone does like 27 damage, as we saw the Harken. Ninian has 31 HP, so she has 4 HP left after that. Ninian's res is 19, I think, so the Druid can definitely finish her off. There's probably a Luna Shaman in here that can probably finish her off, so I'm not completely not worried, but I like the creativity of using Ninian to choke a point here. Absolutely ham. I'm sure she got a bunch of levels from like some kind of degenerate grinding strat earlier. Usually my Ninian at this point is maybe like level 5 or something. But yeah, that's creativity. I gotta give him that one. So Hector's gonna finish off these Wyverns. You know, I'm a stingy person. I would prefer to use an Iron Axe here, but he had to use the Silver Axe to kill the Wyvern enemy phase, so that's fine. Monk. That's a... I don't know what that is. It might be a Luna guy, but either way, she's dodging. And now it's worked out in a way where all these enemies miss Ninian, so this Druid cannot kill her anymore. I think she has enough luck to not get crit by Luna either, so that is fortunate. I kind of wish he had left Ninian's animation on. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I kind of wish that was the case. But I think he got a bit lucky there in some way or form. But yeah, dodge. Doesn't matter. Again, and he's moved closer to Nino, so again he has to take care of one of these Wyverns. And Farn can go ham with the Javelin here. But yeah, this one attacks at 2 range, and then the other one actually goes for 1 range. He would have done 2 range if you had an Iron Sword equipped, but then the next one would have just used 1 range against you. You can just use an Iron Sword there. If some might sound nitpicky, and in this situation it probably won't impact anything, but like half of this is just for the sake of this chapter alone, and the other half of me saying it is so you know for the future. Marcus wakes up, fortunately. I can't believe it's already been like 4 or 5 turns, but apparently it has been. Nino is still sleepy. This is probably a turn where you can wake up Nino if you want to, because you only need 2 units to hold that choke point. Nino is fine in that choke point. Actually, Ninian is not fine in that choke point. You need to remove the Luna Shaman, the Luna Druid. I keep calling him a Shaman because you know, they have a female map sprite. I don't know why. That sounds kind of sexist, but you know what I mean, right? This is kind of a whatever thing to do, I think. Because, like, okay, you're killing this one Valkyrie that's standing there, but there's like 5 more to replace it. Is it really important to finish this one off? Especially because they probably would have suicide on enemy phase or run back to heal. I mean, I guess. But you could restore Nino this turn. Start training her. Start having some fun with her. Or at least move her out of the way so she doesn't die. I know Bopper's answer to this is, well, using Nino was a mistake in the first place, but come on. If she's on the field, you might as well make use of her, right? Poor girl. What you might want to do this turn is figure out a way to have Farna to kill the Luna Druid and get her out safely through use a rescue staff or a rescue drop with Eliwood, for example. Because killing these Valkyries, you're gonna do it eventually, but it doesn't have to be now. But the Druid is what's like threatening Ninian. If you kill the Druid, Ninian can tank these guys for days. Maybe he thinks he doesn't have the means to what to do it. Maybe he doesn't want to use the rescue staff to do it. But this is why... Because if you had a spare unit here, like let's say you have Sarah and Urk side by side here. I think they're supporting, by the way, which is why they're so strong together. You can have Farna do other things. You can have Farna literally fly up here, javelin this Druid, and then get danced by Ninian or something, and then rescue drop back or something. Because Edward can't really reach without being safe. You might think, well, can't you just rescue drop people out with Vida? But Vida can only rescue drop a couple people. She's because she's so big, because her con is so high, she doesn't have a whole lot of aid left due to the formula. She has like 9 aid. So I think she actually cannot rescue... Yeah, I know she cannot lift up Marcus. She might be able to rescue Eliwood. But it's not really in the cards to do it right now. Marcus also a bit precarious, because he could fall in the same problem as Harkin, where one enemy weakens him. Like the Valkyrie could double him or something. And then Druid comes in and is like, oh, 27 HP left, it's time to Luna. So you don't really want Marcus to be too close to here. But you do want him closer to Eliwood, because you want to, you know, support Eliwood. So it's a bit of a sticky situation. There's probably a way to position him so that he's not in enemy range, at least not in Druid range, not in Luna range, while still providing some benefit to Eliwood. I'm really not sure exactly which enemies have which weapons, but if Ninian right now is in range of 2 Lunas, she should not be like that in this enemy phase. Like, you got away with it once, but you don't want to get away with it again. Or you don't want to try to get away with it again. Okay, so both Shamans here have Flux, I just saw that, so she doesn't have much to worry about. I don't know exactly how much attack they have, but they probably don't combine for kill Ninian. And that might be why he was doing so much math earlier. Yeah, so Vida actually only has 8 aid. So she can't rescue... I think she cannot rescue Eliwood. I think Eliwood is like 9 con. At this time, Hector cannot double the Wyvern that's in range of Nino, so he's gonna throw the nice Iron Axe. And again, there's nothing wrong with just moving him down right. And if he's not killing anything anyway, you might as well just bait them the other way. Even if like a one-range enemy cannot reach Hector in this position, they'll still clump up around him, hoping to get a shot in at some point. They won't just fly off and try to reach Nino next turn. They're not that smart. They'll stick with their buddies. But yeah, rescue drop out Nino is good. Now she's not in range. It's like one of the few people who can actually be rescued by Vida. So take drop. Get her closer. Now from here, Bopper spends some time trying to figure out where to move Marcus, but in the end he just leaves him where he is so that he doesn't get overwhelmed, which is probably smart because Luna Druid is still there, he gets doubled by Valkyries, and you don't really care about killing these enemies, so I like this move. We just continue with the choke pointing and the enemy phasing, and I'll get back to you when something exciting happens. Okay, so the point was choked successfully. And honestly, if it just keeps up like this, like Bopper's got this. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong from here, I think. As long as all these choke points hold up, like what could possibly go wrong here, right? Because you got Farna Sarah holding up fine with here, with the Urk support on Sarah. They can never really die as long as they get healed regularly. Ninian is doing fine. She can take damage from the Druid, who should do like 27. She dodged this enemy phase though. And for what I can tell, none of the other enemies here can really damage her, so... Again, perfectly safe. Marcus is off in the corner, but it doesn't really matter. And Hector's handling the Wyverns, so... As far as I'm concerned, we can stop the video here. Bopper's won the map, but... You know, if that was true, the video would actually end here, but it's not going to end here. Now, I'm usually too scared to get rid of a winning position in a map like this. Like, if I see everything is going well and nothing is changing, I'm tempted to just not change it at all. But Bopper goes for a different route. He wants to move Ninian out of this choke point. He wants to like, get started on killing these enemies, which I get. I get impatient looking at this too. So he disgraces Eliwood and puts Eliwood here, and he's like, okay, I can kill the very dangerous Luna Druid now. I keep getting it wrong. Get the kill, get the big threat out of the way, and now Eliwood is ready with a bunch of javelins. This is another spot I think where you can... Hold up, let me get this kill out of the way. I think you can get away with using one range here if you're hurting for 1-2 range weapons if you don't have that many around. Because, again, there's going to be like 2 spots where enemies can attack you, where the monk is in this empty spot right here. Those are 2 range spots for enemies. They can get in there Everything else they can attack you from is one range, which is really just these two spots over here. So if you want to save on 1-2 range weapons, you can do that. Just bring this up because I know Bopper's a little low on javelins. But yeah, Eliwood right now has effectively like 18 res, which means he doesn't really get damaged by anything but Luna. And he also has, I think he's supporting Marcus and Ninian, if I'm not wrong. So that's another extra bunch of defense there, because Ninian is ice, Marcus is ice. So that's all pretty safe. He does have to watch out for wyverns from the back, so he has to like get Nino out of here. I think this is the moment when he realizes, you know, almost every enemy on this map is weak to, is like low defense, high res, which is very bad for Nino. But maybe if I can get one of these wyverns to be weakened, I can kill him with Nino on enemy phase, because, you know, you wouldn't think of Nino as like an enemy phase unit, but like she did before, she can do chip damage on enemy phase, or even kill damage on enemy phase if you weaken an enemy just enough. So just a matter of checking ranges appropriately. Of course, there's no way a wyvern goes for Marcus over Nino, unless like they really don't want to take a counter and they don't do enough damage to Nino, but it's Nino, they're probably going to do enough damage. So they'll probably go for Nino if you give them the option. Just have to very properly check the ranges, because, you know, she's only at 14 HP right now. Probably have to heal her up. I think actually to get into the convoy, use a Vulnerary on her. Don't want to use an Elixir for 6 HP. You don't need to win Elixir Golf every single round you play. And again, Myrnus can't trade, so Nino has to be the one taking it, so has to be very careful about this, which is good. Sometimes people don't check ranges, so there you go. Take the one to use Vul out, deposit the Elixir in case something goes wrong. Heal Nino, all good. And yeah, you can only move Myrnus. So if something is wrong in this formation, Myrnus is not going to fix it, so just end turn. And you know, watch Hector go to town. Now what happens here is actually kind of funny. Eliwood ends up breaking his javelin in his enemy phase, and so he ends up inadvertently switching to the light brand, which is why sometimes in my Let's Plays you can see me switch around my weapons a little bit, even beyond the first one I'm using, because I expect that one might break. I'm always a little bit hoarding weapons like the light brand, of which you only get one or two. So switching them around can be smart. Another reason why you could use an Iron Lance instead of a Javelin here is just it's less likely to break because it has more uses. But if your weapon can break on an enemy phase, make sure that the weapon in the second slot is appropriately selected. It doesn't have to be a perfect situation, just be aware that, like, if you have like a nearly broken hand axe and a devil axe is next, you know, bad things will probably happen. So be aware of what your next weapon is. And here's Marcus tanking Nosferatu. He has enough HP to survive, so he should be just fine here. I think he does double with the hand axe. It does slow him down by 1 speed, but these druids are so slow, yeah, easy. Again, if you were to go for reliability here, you just use a javelin, right? Because it doesn't weigh him down, and he probably has S-rank lances. Maybe he doesn't, but all good. The great thing about the light brand is Eliwood is safer when using it, generally speaking. I think he only gets weapon triangle advantage from range, but just a lot of enemies do attack him from range. Sometimes it can happen. I guess in this case, not really, because they're just fighting him at 1 range. But yeah, attack, attack, attack. These are the javelin guys, not getting countered here. You can, situation like this, if you're like, oh, there you go, Wyvern goes for Nino. Nino counters, just as calculated. Gets another one of those juicy Nino level ups. Speed luck is still speed. Speed is good. Ooh, but there's a Wyvern left. Nino, yeah, she's dead. Unfortunate. There goes Nino. Unfortunate. The good news is that Nino is not the most important unit to lose. If you're gonna lose someone, it better be Nino, you know? But at the same time, it sucks, because this is a character that you like put a lot of like hard work into. Like, you spent hours optimizing Urk's enemy faces so Nino can get kills. And then she just dies, and that's just sad. So, using Nino, I mean, I would never recommend it, but if you're gonna do it, you better like triple check those enemy faces. And there's another thing, hold up, hold to press. Here's Marcus getting attacked by a Valkyrie. And he's kind of low on HP, and if I remember, he gets double. Yeah, he's dead. He's totally dead. Goodbye, Marcus. I'm sorry, dude. So Bopper manages, when the map is under control, manages to lose Nino and Marcus, so basically both ends of a tier list on the same turn, which I think in and of itself is a major accomplishment that has never been achieved before in Fire Emblem history. I'm actually quite amazed he managed to do it. Like, just the timing of it all is just so perfect. He snatched the defeat of 2 of the funniest characters in Fire Emblem history from the clutch of victory. And I think that's poetic. I don't know if it's justice, but it is poetic. Yeah. So how bad does it look now? I think this is as far as I've previewed this, but I might as well finish recording this, you know? Yeah, so how bad of a spot is this still? Because 2 potential choke point holders just got lost, but one of them was not in the choke point. I guess Eliwood loses to Marcus support, but he wasn't using it in the first place. I guess he was using the in disgrace, but if you just kill the druid here and maybe pop one of these 2 in here, you can probably make something happen where if Urk can one-on wyverns, which I'm kind of skeptical on, if someone here can one-on wyverns, you can dance them, I guess. It's a little tricky, actually. I think you have just not enough characters to make it comfortable, but you have enough to make it work. If Nino can attack the Valkyrie, you can just put her in the choke point here, and as long as she's out of range of the druid here, should be fine. Maybe you can kill the druid in this turn. I know he was weakened by the light brand. This can go unchanged. Merlinus might get attacked by a couple wyverns, but at this point, do you really care about Merlinus? Not really. You care about Ninian. So kill 1 wyvern, I guess. Maybe kill 1 wyvern with Vida. Yeah, you can probably kill at least like Vida plus Urk can kill a wyvern, right? And there's only 1 wyvern alive. And then, yeah, it's not that bad. You can even have Vida attack from here, or Urk attack from there. Ninian can move 1 down and dance. And then Ninian is still choke pointing, and Vida can go somewhere else. Attack like a wyvern again or something. That can work. Nino dying was basically the equivalent of a typo, so I don't want to harp on it too much. Like, obviously Bopper was very consciously checking ranges to make sure Nino was only in range of 1 wyvern, and she ended up being in range of 2. And I can criticize that for like, you should have checked the range better, but that's about it. There's no deep strategic insight there. It's a mistake that he didn't mean to make, but it just kind of slipped by him. So it's like a typo to me. So I don't think those are super interesting to analyze, but when you're dealing with a character that dies in 2 hits, you have to absolutely make sure they're in range of 1 enemy. Like, you have to like check 5 times, which for streams, not super exciting to watch, but if you want to keep Nino alive, you gotta do it. A strange thing is that when a character like that dies, like when Nino dies, your run can actually become easier because now you don't have to worry about Nino anymore. Oh, this is also smart. He put I wanna comment this actually. He saw that this is a choke point that can be occupied by 1 character with fire. I can just move her 1 up, choke point, and now Sarah is free to kill a wyvern. That's smart. I didn't even see it yet. I think I commented on the choke point before. I didn't realize it was available in this situation. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I also learn a lot from commentating these because I want to try my best to not make mistakes when I say these things, but I also don't have the best play available all the time. So it's nice to get feedback from that from the comment section and see like some more of these. This is probably fine because this druid is the only one who like 2 shots at it, with everyone else has less damage. As long as he made sure that Nosferatu wouldn't get all HP back. That's the thing I'm worried about here, right? How much HP does this guy start with? Is that his current HP? Yeah, okay, so when you're fighting Nosferatu guys, you gotta do the math like that, right? So let's say the guy hits Eliwood, right? So Eliwood is 16, he goes down to 4. Let's say Eliwood gets hit on counterattack, he heals 25. That means he's out of range, right? Yeah, I think Bopper was actually relying on a dodge here, because he heals more damage than he takes from the Steel Sword. So what if this guy hit Eliwood with the 46 hit, which is like 42 real hit or so, by my estimation. Like, you can't always be like, it's below 50 hits, so it's not going to hit me, right? Like, what if that guy hit him? What if... Because I guess you heal with Urk, and then Urk is like in range for some shamans, which is not terrible. But I think in those cases, it's better to just not attack. Just equip a javelin. Like, that's the case where you equip a javelin. Or actually, since the druid is here, in a 1-range spot, you don't need a javelin. You can just use the Iron Lance, or the Light Brand if you want to. Like, I don't think there's a reason to attack here. It's not like the druid can attack anyone else, right? So why attack there? Alright, so the rest of the chapter, Bopper can just take his time and get through here one at a time. So there's not much worth analyzing here. No deaths happened from here in this chapter as far as I know. So we can round it off here. This chapter is a great lesson in choke pointing, knowing when to play offensively and when to play defensively. If you want to play defensively, there's a lot of options here. There's a lot of choke points, but you do need to get rid of the long-range tomes and some status stats first before you can do it properly. Lots of times where you can play it safe, where you can make some little fancy plays to make it better. They don't really fall under the same umbrella. I think a really big important lesson that's like easy to use if you're actually playing Fire Emblem yourself is something like what happened to Hector with the wyverns that ended up being fought closer to his other units in a way that made it more inconvenient to keep someone like Nino safe who was sleeping. We saw some ways we can train Nino, even in a chapter that's almost like tailored to not let you train her. And we saw some ways it can go wrong, but we also saw it, you know, work out in a lot of ways. We saw places where we could actually use one range weapons, even though all the enemies have 1-2 range. But I think the biggest turning point in this chapter was when Bopper accidentally activated Zone 4, and he stepped one of his units, I think it was Harken, right into enemy range when he really didn't need to. If you're doing it for content, if you're doing it to make the stream more exciting, completely understand it, but I feel like it was an accident. I don't think he meant to bait over the heroes and also activate Vida and activate like the 5 Valkyries with status stabs. I think that was really when the map started going really far south. But of course there was also some like little range checks errors, like when Nino almost died on like turn 1 or 2 to the long range with tomes, and then when she actually died to the wyvern. So a little bit of everything. I hope you found this instructive and helpful, or maybe even entertaining. Either way, if you want to submit your footage, the Discord channel is still open. Of course, I've got a lot of footage to look over. There's also some submissions on Patreon that I want to prioritize first before I get to those. So I can't guarantee I'll get to everything. In fact, I can guarantee I won't. But either way, thank you for submitting if you have, and I'll take a look at it at some point. But for now, I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you next time. And thanks for all the support. Peace.